I think, a pretty good turnout. So I want to get going. We've got a lot to talk about. And of course, we've got the forum, and Nikky Finney is in the house. We're excited about that. So first of all, I want to make sure that the people who are watching us from Zoom, from all over, can hear me. If you can wave, I can see you right now. So if you wave, if you're hearing me, does it sound okay? Like, we had a little problem with the sound being a little bit boomy last time.
Nope, sounds great.
Like, give me a thumbs up for okay and thumbs down for boomy. I'm seeing a lot of thumbs up. All right. So, okay, we got that covered. And as far as in the house here, you hear me okay? Does it sound all right? Okay. Well, first of all, turn off your phones. And I'm always, I'm always surprised how many people have not turned off their phones when I say that. My name is Jim Lundy. I'm the president of the Poetry Society, at least for now. And I want to welcome you to the 694th meeting of the Poetry Society. We are in our 103rd calendar year.
One in the United States. Is it really?
And as you know, the last 3 years have been a trial, have been very difficult. But a few good things came out of that. And one is that we have established a Zoom presence, even when we meet like this in person. So
This is just
from wherever they are, and even if they, they can't get out of the house, if they live around here or they live across the state or they live across the world, they can join us here tonight. So, and we also came up with a way that they can vote tonight too on the winning poems, or the winning poem one will get selected. So this year I've been talking about what the Poetry Society was doing 100 years ago this month. And it's pretty easy. 100 years ago this month, they were having a forum meeting. This is the oldest tradition of the Poetry Society. Up until COVID, we used to be able to say that there was a forum meeting every year of our existence, except for 1939 when there was a polio epidemic. Well, we blew that record out of the water with the last couple of years when we had to cancel the 2020 forum, and then
I'm gonna go inside because I'm going to need to plug this in.
Conduct the next two online or through Zoom. So this is our first time back in 3 years since the 2019 forum was held here. So it's great to be back. I'm glad to see so many people here tonight and familiar faces and everything. So we came out of this pretty good financially. The membership is not flagged. We have maintained pretty much our normal membership. We have probably done even a little better because we're not buying food and hotels and all that stuff when we were just meeting by Zoom. So Poetry Society is in good condition. And I think that moving forward, we're going to come back very, very strong. So I think there's been some positives with COVID for our organization. We were stuck in the 20th century, and I think we have finally moved into the 21st. That is all I have to say. And I will gladly sit down and let the rest of this meeting. The first thing that's going to happen, of course, I don't have the little agenda in front of me, but we need to hold elections for the board for next year. Is that right? On the ballot, I should have that. I'll get a ballot next. What comes after my introduction? It's the election, right? Yes. All right. So the nominating committee has come up with a new board. We have just a few people stepping down. One of them is me. I am, well, in a way, I'm not going to be president anymore, and but I am going to be treasurer. So I'm not leaving the board. But I would like to thank our outgoing vice president, Arthur McMaster, who really did a great job this last year, had a bunch of ideas and initiatives that really helped increased our membership with one of his ideas. So really want to thank Arthur. Evelyn Berry, who's been on the board for quite a while, is stepping down after this season. And she's been very helpful. Another one of our long distance board members from Aiken. And Ethan Fugit, who was a member at large and running the website up until recently. So I want to thank them. They're stepping off. Other board members who are on the current board are shuffling around to different positions or whatever. But I want to get the immediate past president up, yeah, for now. I'm about to be the immediate past president. But so Susan Finch Stevens will come up here and run announce the slate, and I suppose I will run the vote. So Susan, come on up.
A little shorter. First, I'd like to reiterate Jim's appreciation for the outgoing board, and many of the same names are on this slate that I'm very pleased to present on behalf of the nominating committee tonight. But some of them are in different positions. So this is the slate that we present. President Tamara Miles, Vice President Emily Roscoe, Treasurer Jim Lundy, Recording Secretary Tina Baumus, Corresponding Secretary Nancy Dew Taylor, Members at Large John Byrne, Ashley Kraut, Danielle DeTiberis, Yvette Murray, Danielle Burrs, and Charles Watts. It's really an excellent slate.
Thank you, Susan. I want to reiterate that it is an excellent slate. I think it's very exciting and it's historic. This is the very first time that president of the Poetry Society will not live anywhere near the Charleston area. So we have never been able to do that before. Our board meetings are Zoomed now, so it makes it all possible. And that's Tamara, who's sitting here in the front row. But I will entertain a motion to accept the slate as submitted from the floor. All right. All in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. The slate has been elected as submitted. So congratulations. All right, Charles Watts is our contest chair. He is watching from Zoom tonight, but so in his place, Ed Gold will announce the winners of the spring contests. It'll be all right.
Thanks, Jim. Hey, everybody. It's great to see everybody, hear your voices, see your faces. Oh, well, I don't know who the judges were, unfortunately, but I do have from Charles the list of the winners and the runners-up and the honorable mentions for the spring prizes for the contests. And a little note from the judges, anonymous as they are, about each person. So the first one is the Bobby Kennedy Memorial Prize, and the winner is Frances Pierce for Redbirds, but I don't see Frances here. Honorable mention, Harold Oberman. Is Harold here? And here's what the judge said. A wandering girl carries the rhythm of the poem through pleasantness of nature, despite a reality she does not care for, while her older self embraces the ripples of these memories, her loneliness filled by the tidal fowl, Redbirds. The poem shows the power of connection and reflection on simple things and simpler times. Frances has great poems about birds and flowers. The second prize, there's 6 of them tonight, is the Peter Pan Prize. And Danielle Verwers for Bluegrass Music has won that. Is Danielle here? Oh, hello, Danielle. Congratulations. Deborah Connor got an honorable mention here. The poem showcases the intimacy between instrument and musician to create, using vibrant, clever images along with short, intense lines to pique our interest. To lyrical quality, its lyrical quality stands out as a song of its own. So very, very nice. Congratulations, Danielle. Now, the third prize this season is the Scotty Davis Watson Prize, and the winner is Laurel Blossom for Reunion. Comment by the judge: what a fabulous 5-line poem that celebrates the moment the speaker sees their beloved. And Teresa Haskew won an honorable mention for that prize. The Dr. Linda Veldheer Prize. The winner is Evelyn Berry, Love in the Year of the Tiger Balm. I love giving Evelyn her prizes, but she's not here tonight to do it. What a lovely, fun, and touching poem of how, despite time and aging, love persists. The form fits the content, the end rhymes are unique, and the title, wonderful. Enjoyed the humor too. Judith Reese won honorable mention for this, the Dr. Linda Veldheer Prize. So congratulations, Evelyn and Judith. All right, the next to the last prize for spring, well, not counting the Skylark, of course, is the John Robert Doyle Jr. Prize. And Mary Louise Hudson won this for a poem called An Egg and Onion Sandwich. Arthur McMaster and Brian Slusher won honorable mentions for this one. In this tiny narrative, the author reveals so much about choice, about our illusions of choosing and agency, and the imperatives of love, habit, and addiction. This poem seems so simple, and yet it is so very rich. Last but not least, number 6, Rhyme for No Reason contest. Deborah Connor won this for The Dying Season. Harold Oberman and Lawrence Rue were Lawrence is here, for won honorable mentions. Comments by the judge. While most of the entries went for humor, this one did not. And the narrative, the use of rhyme and meter and image all worked so well. The images are so effective that Uncle Without Manners, but the rhyme scheme with its tiny little delay and then closure, ABBA, CDDC, etc., leads us so effectively toward that last slight delay, that final closure. This is a lovely poem. So let's give a big round of applause for all the winners and the honorable mention. Thank you, Charles, for getting all this together, but you're missing all the big fun of giving out the prizes. So here we go. And now we'll move to Skylark. So the last prize, and the one I love the most, is the wonderful Skylark contest, which has been going on since the very beginning of the Poetry Society. And Oliver has been working on Skylark since 1969. I figured that out, that's 53 years. So Oliver, we love you. Oliver and Ellen Hyatt. Ellen is also here. Thank you, Ellen. They are the 2 preliminary judges. And Kit Loney is our final judge, and she had the really, really difficult task this time of picking the winner from 10 really, really strong finalists. So I'm going to introduce Kit right now to you to introduce you to Savannah Bell, our young poet from Greenville, the Governor's School, and Kit's going to introduce her for you. So thank you, everybody. Another year of Skylark. Thank you, Savannah. That's good.
Well, it's great to see everybody. It's great to be here again. And yes, hello to the Zoomers too. This year's group of Skylark finalists was stellar. Among them, 2 pantoums and a panther, a moving portrait of a beloved grandfather, reflections on being a young person in the age of COVID, family gatherings, and surviving and moving beyond a toxic relationship. I chose 2 honorable mentions: To Dissect a Pine, which, using muscular verbs and vivid images, takes the reader on a journey into the forest to obtain petrified wood. And another honorable mention, Test Tube Baby, with a sense of deep, abiding love, internal rhyme, and the sentence, I am your temper, vinegar and napalm, honey and calm. The poem chosen this year for the Skylark winner is Belton, South Carolina. It begins with the sentence, in some ways I am familiar with nowhere. Of course, the reader has already been told the name of nowhere in the title. Nowhere is already somewhere, and the poem delivers a profound sense of place. There is strong imagery here: sun-baked, shining charcoal shingles and limp American flags. Toward the center of the poem, between the curious architecture of a cat's tombstone and the empty house of a deceased neighbor, the poet inserts a suggestion of heaven, but slyly, using the word haven, just 1 letter away. The poem has an inherent musicality and is a delight to read out loud. I invite you to do so. It is filled with alliteration, moments of internal rhyme, and an enjoyable line of iambic pentameter that pops right out. When the poet states toward the end that what needs to come will do so gracefully, the reading of this poem has already provided a stunning example. So I would like to introduce the poet herself, who is here with us this evening, Savannah Bell.
Hello. I'm really happy to be here. And this is Belton, South Carolina. In some ways, I'm familiar with nowhere. I know the honey drawl of small town summers, the blessed purgatory of South Carolina winters. Absence does not warrant longing. It does not demand it in the way in which one would assume. The for sale signs which litter the lawns of those who ache for change do not compel me to be anywhere but the Browns of Brown Avenue. Slowness shows itself within the stillness of molasses sunsets. Amity manifests in sun-baked, shining charcoal shingles, in limp American flags, in a barren, broken concrete bench with columns as legs, a flat column which became my pet cat's tombstone, in a seat of sly brown squirrels. I come from a haven constructed of white lines in the blue sky. I breathe in gusts of groggy air in July. I sit in stillness, sticky with sweat, eyes batting away the flies swarming to my sunburnt scalp. My broken AC sputters, spits, whispers that there is always something vaster, something moving away from my extended arm and freckled fingers. Yet stillness does not bind me. Christmas wreaths hung in January in the empty house of my deceased neighbor are not a sign that I am unmoving, but a sign that what needs to come will do so gracefully. It will land on the soft padding of dead grass and poplar leaves. Thank you.
Aha. It is with absolute pleasure that I would like to introduce you to my homegirl, Miss Nikky Finney. Now, you may ask, Yvette, how could that be your homegirl when you just met her 20 minutes ago? It's because we are daughters of the same dust. Sisters of Pluff Mud, we share blood memory. Her bio reads, so you can write pretty. Tony Cade Bambara tells the 21-year-old Nikky Finney during a monthly writing circle that Bambara held in her Atlanta home during the 1980s. But what else can your words do besides adorn? This flat-footed question put to the young poet by the great short story writer at the beginning of her career sets her sailing towards a life of aiming her words to do more than pearl and decorate the page. She follows the path beyond adornment that Bambara lived and taught, a writing life rooted in empathic engagement and human reciprocity. Nikky Finney has been a faculty member at Cave Canem's summer workshop for African-American poets, a founding member of the Afro-Latin Poets, a particular place for poets of color in Appalachia. Poet and professor for 23 years at the University of Kentucky and visiting professor at Berea and Smith Colleges. She won the PEN American Open Book Award in 1996 and the Elizabeth O'Neill Verner Award for the Arts right here at home in 2016. She edited Black Poets Lean South, a Cave Canem anthology, authored On Wings Made of Gauze, which is spectacular, buy it, Rice, Heartwood, The World is Round, and Head Off and Split, winner of the 2011 National Book Award for Poetry. Her acceptance speech has become a thing of legend. If you haven't heard it, please go listen to it. Here at home, she involves herself in the day-to-day battles for truth and justice, while also guiding both undergraduates and MFA students at the University of South Carolina, where she is the John H. Bennett Jr. Chair in Creative Writing and Southern Letters. With appointments in both the Department of English Language and Literature and the African American Studies program, which she proudly notes is 46 years strong. Nikky Finney's work in book form and video, including her now legendary acceptance speech, is on display in the inaugural exhibition of the African American Museum of History and Culture in Washington, D.C. You will find her in the Poets Corner, where else? Directly across from Chuck Berry's 1973 candy apple red Cadillac Eldorado. Finney's work includes the arenas of Black girl genius unrecognized, Black history misplaced and forgotten, and the stories of women who prefer to jump instead of ride the traditional tracks of polite and acceptable society. In her body of poetry and storytelling, she explores the whispers and shouts of sexuality, the invisibility of poverty in a world continually smitten by the rich and powerful, the graciousness of Black family perseverance, the truth of history, the grace and necessity of memory, as well as the titanic loss of habitat for all things precious and wild. Nikky's latest book, Love Child's Hotbed of Occasional Poetry, is a minglement of word and image, ushering in a new era in the American poetry canon. I am now officially speechless. Please help me welcome Miss Nikky Finney.
Yvette was right. We are daughters of the dust. Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon. Pleasure to be here with you. When I was invited, I wasn't doing anything else for the summer, and I told the person who does my organizing, I don't think I can do it. I feel like I'm all booked up, and I just want to write this summer, but something tugged at me to say that I needed to do this and I needed to come and be a part of this 600 and 6,000 and how many, what number are we at? Okay, 694. So I didn't know that number, but I knew and felt how far the seeds go back in this society. And I wanted to come tonight and just step my toe into this ring. Fishing among the learned. On the banks of her butterfly pond, grandmother would stand as fluid as a waterfall, teaching with a 5 and dime pole in her hand. Be still, she would say, and listen to that. She would make more good decisions, lose more control, gain relinquished power, care about more people, recycle energy, discern more foolishness in an afternoon of fishing than Congress ever could, be they all Democrat, all Republican. My first semesters ever were spent staring up at this human university, shifting my weight from bamboo leg to trout flat foot, waving first cowfly, then firefly from off her apron dress, listening to the sounds swelling around us. There was noise, there was instruction, there was a difference in the two. This kind of standing stare at still water, fresh water philosophy, I called it. This speaking on the depths of a true life lived full Saturday sociology, footprints baked into the soft bank, advanced Lucy geography. These outdoor lessons could go on for days and did as long as there was sun and bait, there was learning. To educate means to lead out. She whispered to me on the snakish road home. I had no idea what she was saying or why now. At well-lit nightfall, in between the quiver of country bugs, I'd wonder why she'd stood me there, that pole in my hand, gripped tight as teeth full-born to a jaw, insisting, girl, pond water is as good as any book. She'd already said to me in dreams, a good teacher can do more than talk about it. She can see it beyond the convincing skinny pages of any flattened tree. There on that bank, preparing me for giant whales when she knew full well brim and mullet were all we had tugging our lines. You don't fish just to catch. You fish so you can keep, so you can put something back, the fisherwoman taught. It has less to do with the fish and more to do with your line, staying in the water with your hand on the pole, with discerning rituals, sniffing out the weather, with what you can figure out about yourself that early in the quiet morning, in between the iridescent help of sun or moon, in between the magnificent bites. Know what you will not let corrupt you, that you cannot be bought or sold. Assume another will come after you have gone, their own pole tight in hand, as well hoping to catch something. Put something back wherever you can. Then she'd untie the hook from its mouth, lay it back in the soft velvet water, her fingers already asking forgiveness. Penguin, mullet, bread. She pulls white oily meat of mullet off the long sharp bones of spine. The bones prick. She never once says ouch. Kissing the tips now and then. I watch her long fingers, 7 inches away. My eyes are 2 glossy olives glued to the delicate woman's mouth. It is summer. Behind her, The white curtains she has made move like seagrass, tall, freckled, waving just beyond. I am camera, she is movie. She bites, then rolls, placing plump, soft chunks of fish into the side of her mouth. Her eyes grow big from what she tastes. I study her mouth, but not her eyes. Watching her eyes is for later, nighttime, when she will read the day's story to me. She chews slowly, never showing what's there. Her tongue twists and falls. My dinner moves in slow whitefish animation. She coos like a woman who can taste any flavor in the world, a woman who can hula hoop in her own mouth. My hand rises, my fingers reach, fall short, then fall again. I want to say, Mama, pull the flesh from the throat, not the belly. The meat there has more juice than the meat around the fins, but she is the mama, and I have no baby patois for what little I know of watery things. I have only 17 months of new desire and only 2 ways of showing it. It's too soon to tell her how much I miss my private swimming hole. That story must wait for 9 birthday candles when I am headlong back in her warm water. She chews down on the flesh of the fish, packs it around good until it is a perfect caramel mush. Catching some of the juice that falls with her longest finger there at the corner of her mouth, she pushes all of the sweet flesh back inside. Once or twice, she pulls out a hat pin sized bone hiding in the waves of tender meat. Only then does she wear her eureka smile. Holding it up in the air to show me, my wishful eyes rise. Her long hand is circled in light. My body shifts into question mark grateful. My newish eyes lift over and beyond the white curtains that all visitors believe are store-bought. This is why you have a mama. Her empire backbone finally speaks. This is why you must never talk back to me, why you must love, honor, and obey. My job, and then her toes, pas de deux, is to feed and tell you the stories and keep you away from the sharp things that might slip into your throat and never completely disappear. Her eyes plie into the slinky circles of her mouth. The sweet flesh is finally ground. Salt and snapper, spit and meal, fine pate. She reaches her long brown fingers deep inside her jaw. Our hinged mouths open, mine prematurely. My fists are flying fleshy verbs in the apple air of her kitchen, balled in sweet anticipation. My chubby legs yoga extend into early orgasmic pose. My chin sets into downward facing dog. My begging eyes and dark mauve lips close in slow around her fingers. The pounded, succulent fish and spit lands on the center of my tongue. I swell in my first chair ever, fed by the mother who relishes the story of turning her back and leaving me once to swim off 1,000 miles, find food, fight off shimmering shark, then swim 1,000 miles back just to drop her beak into mine. I am the lucky girl of the high chair. And this last one, maybe 2 more. This is Hotbed 49 from the new book. Hotbeds are narratives that I've pulled out of my journal books, narratives that typically would become a poem, but in this particular case, in this particular form for a book, they represent the garden that the poem comes out of. And they all have numbers, and they're all called hotbeds, and the numbers are varied and random. It's hunting season, and I'm driving Highway 26 across the Congaree River. One exit remains before my exit home. A man is coming toward me, riding against the traffic. He is a man who should not be riding his bicycle in the emergency lane of this dangerous highway, but he is. He rides fast as if he is being chased, but no one is behind him. He rides fast as if he knows he only has a small window of time. He is holding on to the wobbling bike handles with only his right hand. The front legs of a 10-point buck are curled around his right shoulder. The buck's 10-point antlers, his half-closed eyes, open, gaping mouth, and dangling tongue are held near the bicyclist's dark brown left cheek. His left arm is locked into place. I slow down as he passes by to be sure I am seeing what I am really seeing. A Black man on a bright orange bike on a 4-laner with a dead deer splayed across his shoulders like a mink collar. There is blood dripping down his white shirt, but his smile is as wide as the Congaree River. His fast pedaling legs tell me this winter will be different. This winter, in his shotgun of a house, there will be meat. This last poem is an ekphrastic poem. I was asked, there was an exhibit on Southern photography a couple of years ago, and the College of Charleston was presenting it and asked me to write one, Nikki, just write one poem. And I wrote 10 because the photography was so fantastic. I love ekphrasis. I love ekphrastic poetry. We'll talk a little bit about that tomorrow. But I saw this, and I have to show this up, hold this up. There's a picture here, the photograph that was taken of a Gulf oil spill. And here's the tanker that sits sideways on the Gulf of Mexico. And in this water is the oil that has spilled. And for 2 years, I've been trying to find my way into writing about the Mother Emanuel massacre. And I could not find my way in until I saw this photograph. And when I saw it, this is what ekphrasis does for me as a poet. I am visually inclined. I understood what was in the water to not be from that tanker, and made a symbolic leap into this poem called Miss Polly is Akimbo underneath the Mother Emanuel collection table. I also need to tell you that I was watching the trial and watched Miss Polly on the witness stand. I happened to be traveling through the room while the TV was on, and the prosecutor asked her one question, and it was the one question that triggered the rest of this poem. He said, "What was the question that Dylan Roof asked you?" And she answered, "He asked me, have I shot you yet?" Miss Polly is akimbo underneath the Mother Emanuel collection table on the occasion of swimming into a photograph by Daniel Beltra, oil spill number 12, 2010. The one who came to start the next civil war speaks to her directly. Have I shot you yet? There is no one else left to answer. In the church basement, all are dead or bleeding out. Miss Polly half on her knees, is askew, tilted, her last angle, akimbo to the 9 others who are sprawled and already spiraling towards heaven. In her mind, she too is about to die. There is no place to hide when you are the last one facing the waving gun. The air has been invaded by a poison mix of bright red ore spewing from his mouth. There was a spilling. There is about to be another. He cannot see the seeping septic colors, but she can. And there is no isthmus wide enough beneath her shield of a table to keep her from the current of his nonstop debris. A floating band of iron orange tincture crooks her pounding heart, but does not push her downstream. She waits sideways, as high up as she can, refusing to look at him. She knows how evil can enter through the iris if beheld too long. She will not be all black and blue, unsure of what has been released in the room. A river of flaming copper is moving slowly through her blood. She is an honest woman and has seen with her own 2 honest woman eyes what hate erupting inside a man can do and what this one has done. She decides her last words on this earth will not be camouflaged and khaki, handed over just before he runs out the same way he walked in. When he shot the pastor, she could have faked it, fallen over sideways, held herself perfectly still, asked her body to lie for her, but that would not have been the life she has lived. It will not be the death she dies at his feet. She turns into the last one standing, and her molten answer arrives. It is the color of pounded beets beaten out of their safe skins. Her persimmon words outline every beloved bullet-riddled body still lying on the floor. Have you shot me yet? No, you have not. Thank you. I'm not sure what I do next. Sorry? Yes, the forum begins, but do I begin it? Oh. Right. Oh, okay. I thought, okay. Are you going to be there? You're going to come up. Okay. And then I'm going to move over. And then I just want to say before you come up, it was a pleasure to, more than a pleasure to read all of the poems that were sent to me. And I want to remind you of what Yvette said when we talk about how I chose what I chose, because I do believe that a poem should do more. And the 4 poems that I disobeyed my regulations and did not choose 3, I chose 4 because that's just how I am. I couldn't take one out. And I want to say that in all of these poems, I feel like the churning that is going on in them rose them each to the top.
You may sit here.
Okay.
We put that so that I could sit there and not fall down steps. I don't think, Nikki, that we're going to hear any poems that will equal the one we just heard. Thank you. Summer of the Pushmore. And the mediocre slash job I perform for house owners on the lower portions of their backyards where they cannot spy how I've shown the grass, like a child's head who forgets to speak properly back to his father after opening his eyes during prayer. Wreathed in sweat, I march and schlep the moor, its motor sputtering like grease. I beseech neighbors for $10 to defile their lawns with rust-baptized blades. All that's left behind are dandelions growing too close to stumps and shallow ditches. I mourn to raise anything that grows so wild.
Switcheroo. Okay, got it. Summer of the Pushmore. This poem jumped out at me because of there's so much human revelation embedded in it. There's so much familial imperfection in its lines. This poem for me comes right out in my face, and it tells you who the poet is, who the I voice is. There's no wandering around to try to figure out the personality and that kind of thing. I also wrote that the sense of integrity, even though what they're talking about is not something that you want to hear that somebody is doing and then you're going to pay them for, but the sense of integrity that the poet has in letting us know that this exists in the world was a very sharp and wonderful thing. They themselves, the I voice, is afraid and has a little bit of paranoia going on. But I want to start at the beginning and talk about the words mediocre / job. I perform very specifically these words I underscored on the lower portions of their backyards, lower backyards, where they can't see me, where they cannot spy, and how I've shorn, not cut, but shorn the grass. And then this part, which becomes almost like the spine of the poem, like a child's head, like a child's head who forgets to speak properly back to his father after opening his eyes. And I inserted too soon, but that's not there, during prayer. I'm like, wow, this also is revelatory in terms of what perhaps is pushing the poet or the I voice to do this mediocre / job. Is this an action reaction kind of thing that's embedded here? I love how the poet places that very long metaphor in the middle of the poem. Also, the vivid descriptions: wreathed in sweat, march and schlep, the mower, its motor sputtering. I put a question mark after grease because I don't think that's the right word there, but I love that how we're brought in with the specificity of language there. Beseech $10 to defile their lawns, and then to end on the dandelions, which is really a weed with a bloom. And then we really get the sort of opening up of who the I voice is. I mourn to raise anything that dare grows so wild. Wonderful poem.
Silences. I have no memories from that dinner in Manchester 14 years ago. You tell me they were the best Brussels sprouts you ever ate. But I remember instead the nearby Carthusian monastery where monks took a vow of silence, and recall the dinner 2 nights earlier in Great Barrington, where I sat quietly with poet Yasuhiko Shigemoto, who spoke and wrote in Japanese. You remind me of something humorous from a movie at the hotel in Budapest. And I recall on the walls of that grand hotel were photographs of Freud and Josephine Baker when they were guests. We remember differently. I never remember what people have said. I have visuals images, flashbulb memories, not how a dinner tasted, how it smelled, but how it was presented on the plate. Not what you told me in the car of your prognosis, but of two crows atop a light stanchion in the hospital parking lot.
Has so many layers. And I think this is part of the true power of this poem is in its layering. I also am deeply drawn into what the poet and what the I voice reveal to be the differences between the I voice and the other, and how one of the characters in this poem is drawn into the thing that are kind of on top, the Brussels sprouts, the savory, the sweetness, that taste bud, that inside of the mouth, you know, that interior that draws all of us to perhaps dining or that kind of thing, and the memory. But what this I voice is drawn to is a more revelation on how things are arranged and how things are set up visually. And I love the sort of putting side by side the sensory images of the things that she or he does not remember, next to those two amazing crows in the hospital parking lot that probably nobody but he or she saw in that moment. It's a wonderful coupling of human sensory perception and how different we can be in the same moment. Beautiful poem.
Talking John's Island lovesick quarantine self-help blues. I know it's hard. They tell you drinking don't help, which is true. But in my experience, at times like these, not drinking don't help much either. I've been trying to cool it off in the pond, but the pond is already warming its way to a big slippery puddle of yes. Come summer, you will find me wholly unaccountable. I'm already gone, but not in the way you mean. And I'm coming back, but like a comet, not something to stand around waiting for. The frogs have woken up. Something in their timeless wetness tricks you, and you believe their souls to be cold and reptilian, like terrible geometry. But I have seen one spurn the offer of freedom in my uncurled fingers, and instead blink twice and grab my thumb and sing. So if you've got to go somewhere, go to the farm. But for God's sake, do not lie to the angels there. Their gypsy eyes are clear and sharp, and you will feel a fool. Instead, stand up and for once speak the full truth. If it helps, say what I said. Say, I am afraid. The hummingbirds are here already, and I fear it is too late. Help me plant for them a new Eden. They deserve it, and I, here alone at the unfolding, I am hard lonesome for the company of magic.
This poem called Talking John's Island, Lovesick Quarantine Self-Help Blues brings in so many things that matter to me. Not the drinking, but the outside world, the natural world, and how the I voice and how the poet prioritizes the outside world, the natural world. And for me, in this moment where so much is happening to the natural world, I felt this poem speaking directly to that. It's a poem about magic and lonesomeness and the desire not to live in a world without that magic, and maybe some magical realism, a poem about what's happening to our world that we are at times so mindlessly ignoring and not paying attention to. I think that the midpoint of this poem could be the title of a song, The Frogs Have Woken Up. And I love how there's this moment where you actually see the frog not want to just jump, but stay. I have seen one spurn the offer of freedom in my uncurled fingers and instead blink twice and grab my thumb and sing. So if you've got to go somewhere, go to the farm. It's such an issue of sending us back to what matters and where we began. And I think the word, the phrase, the unfolding, carries a lot of weight there as well. Wonderful poem.
Closed adoption. All I knew of my birth mother then was the fierce red color of her hair that burned away any unusual humanness. Her build, still slight with youth, and her love of the horses she rode across the mind of my childhood. I filled my room with horse figurines so that we would have something shared between us when she came one day to find me. But sometimes what is missing does not know how to return. You find yourself seeking the safety of certain devotion, such as the loyalty of vaguely human horses, like the ones in Westerns who know how to head home if ever they are separated from their cowboy in the course of the story. I cannot end this with even a brief singular nod of acknowledgement. I saw her once decades too late, the woman who carried my life until it could be separated from hers. I recognized her the way I know myself in the mirror. She moved as I moved. Her face was trapped in my face. I would not let her out. I had never resembled anyone. You would think it would have connected us. I was once brand new in the world. I needed her then, is what I said during our single intersection. She has no language for how she heard this, did not respond. I considered being devastated. Then I decided to take my life back. I pictured all my horses restless in the barn, alerting me to a dangerous presence, a coming storm, indifferent to my safety, my survival, the interdependent structures of my house. You've grown old, I might say. I will outlive you.
Closed adoption, one stanza, three things that the poet begins the poem with: the red hair, the build of the body and the horses. And so amazing how the poet comes back to the horses and uses the symbolism and the power of the horses to tell the rest of the story. The denouement I feel in this poem is right again in the middle. It's the spine, and it might even potentially have the power to be two stanzas instead of one. And I saw her once, decades too late, the woman who carried my life until it could be separated from hers, is right there in the middle. And then there's so much on the line in this poem. There's so much vulnerability. You can't, as long as I have been teaching poetry, you can't teach this. You have to want to tell this story. And I think the one thing at the end I keep wondering about is like, then I decided to take my life back, boom. And the horses are restless in the barn, alerting the I voice to a dangerous presence is such a beautiful way to bring the horses back in. I must say, I did want the red hair to come back in somewhere before the poem ended, but it doesn't. And then at the end, you have almost two endings. You have the horses alerting the I voice to not being safe. And then I feel like that last quote is almost a second ending. And I'm wondering, I don't know which one I would fight for more. I would ask the poet to maybe decide that, but they're both beautifully written there. So it's like a burst because we only have this one stanza in terms of form to deal with, but it falls and falls and falls until the end of the poem. Lovely.
Hopefully all of you have a ballot, and if you don't, there's some left on the desk back there. The top page can be used to, you just take that off the pack and put circle your favorite poem and hand it in, and we will count those in the next few minutes, and we'll have a winner for you. So if everybody do that. If in the unlikely event that we run out of ballots, you can just tear off one of the poems and write or circle the poem, to choose the poem, somebody, but we'll go through those. I want to get Nikki up here while we're doing all that. To come back and talk about your workshop tomorrow. Oh, by the way, right now, the people at home can vote on a vote ballot that Beth is sending out on the chat page. So you'll see that. So I'm going to sit down. Nikki, tell us about your workshop.
So tomorrow, I don't know if you saw the narrative that I sent back about what the workshop would be covering. The title of it is The Unvaccinated, that's in quotation mark, Witness. And one of the things that I'm very interested in, have been very interested in for all of my life and career and wondering as a poet, has to do with being the sensitive child. I was a sensitive child in my mother's house, and I was the sensitive child growing up in South Carolina in the 1960s and 70s. And the backdrop of my life had many emotional variations. And one of the things that my mother used to tell me to do was to stop being so sensitive, that it was not going to work out well for me if I didn't learn to harness that sensitivity in some sort of way. And so it wasn't a good thing to be the sensitive child in my mother's house. But alas, it was, because being the sensitive child allowed me to become a poet and to record my world and the things around me. And that's what I did. And I didn't listen to my mom. I didn't put up my guard. I didn't vaccinate myself away from feeling. And so I use the word vaccination in this contemporary moment, because of course we must be vaccinated. That is not what I'm saying at all, and that's what the quotation marks are there for. But I grew up hearing the stories of Walt Whitman, who went into the hospital where his brother had been wounded during the war, right? And took his notes and wrote his poetry and was a witness, but not a journalist. The human witness who must tell what they see and how they feel about what they see. And I feel like, goodness gracious, this moment we are in that feels crazy and feels like the world is cracking, and it feels like we are more separated by more things than ever before. We need the poet, we need the artists, as James Baldwin told us to. Baldwin said that no one knows quite what it feels like to be a human being except the poet. And by poet, he meant artist. And he said, the preacher doesn't know, the politician doesn't know, the poet, only the poet knows. And when I read that 20, 30 years ago, it wasn't a statement that separated me from humanity. It was a statement that let me know who I was responsible to. And that's what I want to talk about more tomorrow, because I feel like Yvette's quote of Toni K. Bambara's question to me, oh, you write very pretty poetry. That's a very pretty line, Nikki. What else can your poetry do but adorn, is one that still haunts me, and one that I really continue to try to honor. Because when I tell that story, there are so many young poets who say to me, why didn't you get mad at her? And I said, mad at what? This was my teacher. She was trying to tell me something that she found missing in my work. And I wanted to be a better poet then. I still want to be my best poet now. So it's something that I continue to teach my students, who fall in love in that Faulknerian way with their darlings, and they don't look beyond the sort of prettiness on the page. So tomorrow we will talk more about that.
All right, we have a winner, and unfortunately, this is something I messed up. Since these poems are blind to everyone here, I was going to bring the cheat sheet that told me who wrote all these poems, and I didn't. So I can tell you who the winning poem is, but I can't tell you who the winning poet is. The winner was Silences. It was a clear winner. So congratulations. If anyone in the audience wrote Silences, or if anyone on Zoom wrote it, that I would like to. No.
I wrote it. I wrote it, Jim.
We'll just give it a second in case it's someone who's zooming in, and if not, we'll just.
I did.
And certainly the winner is going to get that check for that. The Forum Prize is a prestigious prize. You won from a trial of your peers, and I think it's such an old tradition. It's really, I think, an honor to win. Did anyone pony?
I did. I wrote it, Jim.
That sounds right. Okay, Randy Spencer. Congratulations, Randy. I think that's right. I remember the name. I just guess I didn't register the name. I knew a couple. Yeah. All right. Congratulations, Randy Spencer. That completes our forum, the 2022 forum, the first one back in person in all these years. And thank you for coming. It's so nice to see people. And this is great. I'm looking forward to hopefully a return to all in-person meetings next year. We won't have any more of these hiccups with new variants and all that. But thank you for being here. Thank you for the people who zoomed in, and until next season, until September, that's it for the 2021, 2022 year. And we'll be starting back up after the summer. So with Tamara Miles as our president. So anyway, stick around. There's book signing. There's a whole pile of books out there, and we can chat. And that's a wrap. Thank you.